Okay, so let's jump into this deep dive.
Sounds good.
Huge congrats, by the way, to everyone listening out there for finishing up those medical qualifications.
Yeah, big achievement.
And I know a lot of you have also passed those AMC exams.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Australia's calling.
Australia's waiting.
But what do you really need to know to make this move go smoothly?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Well, in this deep dive, we're going to cover it all.
Yeah, we'll do our best.
So think cost of living in those big Aussie cities.
Right, the practical stuff.
Exactly, and how the healthcare system actually works.
Gotta know that.
Of course. And maybe even more important, some insights into Australian culture.
The do's and don'ts.
Yeah. And then, of course, we got to look at the job market for doctors.
The opportunities.
Right, and then taxes.
Yeah, don't forget those.
No, you can't. The political scene, government policies, and even where to find support when you land.
All the essentials.
Yeah. Our mission here is to give you the knowledge you need.
Without overloading you.
Exactly, so you don't feel totally overwhelmed. So let's start with something pretty crucial. Where are you going to live and how much is it going to cost?
Yeah, cost of living. That's always top of mind.
It is, and I know you've looked into this, so tell me what's the picture in those big cities?
Well, it really varies a lot between cities like Sydney, for example.
Sydney, yeah.
Known for its high housing costs.
High rent.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh.
You know, for a one-bedroom apartment in the city itself,
Mm-hmm.
you could be looking at rent upwards of like $2,800 a month.
Wow. Okay.
It's a lot. It's driven by limited space and it's super high demand.
Makes sense.
A bit more affordable would be Melbourne.
Okay.
Monthly living costs, they're generally lower
Okay.
one-bedrooms in the city, around $2,200.
Still not cheap.
No, but you'll find better deals if you head to those outer suburbs.
Right. Fritter out.
Exactly. And then you've got places like Brisbane and Perth,
Okay.
which can offer even more budget-friendly options.
Okay.
City rents there,
Yeah.
could start closer to like $1,800 to $2,200.
So there's a range there.
Yeah. And then Adelaide often stands out as the most affordable,
Okay.
particularly when it comes to housing.
Interesting. So Adelaide might be the place to go if you're on a budget.
Could be.
Okay. So we've talked about rent, but what about those other everyday expenses?
Right. The things you forget about.
Yeah, the things that add up.
Yeah. So think about transport.
Okay.
Monthly passes can range from about $100 to $220,
Wow. Okay.
depending on the city.
Right.
Then there's food.
Food's got to be a big one.
Yeah. Anywhere from $400 to $800 a month, depending on your lifestyle.
Yeah, makes sense.
And then utilities.
Right.
Another $150 to $400 a month.
So those fixed costs add up.
They do. And don't forget that 2% Medicare levy.
Oh, yeah, right.
That comes straight out of your income for healthcare.
So that's on top of everything else.
It is.
Mm.
And then if you choose to go for private health insurance,
Right.
that's another cost to factor in.
So yeah, your choice of city really impacts that overall budget. Okay, well, speaking of healthcare, let's dig into how that system actually works.
Right, because it's a bit different.
It is Medicare. That's the big one, isn't it?
Yeah, Medicare is the heart of it all. It's Australia's universal healthcare system.
Universal, so everyone's covered.
Yeah, in theory. And it's funded partly by that levy we talked about.
Right, the 2%.
Exactly. And it covers a lot of things.
Like what?
Like care in public hospitals, visits to GPs and specialists,
Okay.
and subsidized medications through the Pharmaceutical Benefits Scheme, or PBS.
Right, the PBS.
Yeah. And there's also this thing called bulk billing,
Bulk billing, yeah, I've heard of that.
which can really help reduce your out-of-pocket expenses.
So for doctors moving there, what's the deal?
Well, as a new permanent resident, you'll likely be eligible for Medicare.
That's good?
Yeah. And then there's the option of private health insurance,
Okay.
which gives you more choice and can cover things Medicare doesn't.
Like what kind of things?
Things like dental and optical.
Okay, so you might want both.
Yeah, a lot of people do. And as a doctor, you'll need to understand how referrals work
Okay.
and how prescribing works under Medicare and the PBS.
So there's a bit of a learning curve there.
There is.
Okay, well, let's shift gears a bit and talk about Aussie culture.
Right, the softer side of things.
What are some things our listeners should be prepared for socially?
Well, first of all, expect things to be pretty informal.
Informal. Okay.
Yeah, people use first names really quickly,
Okay.
and titles are often downplayed.
Interesting.
And there's this cultural value of modesty,
Modesty. Okay.
sometimes called tall poppy syndrome.
Oh, I've heard of that.
So basically, don't brag too much.
Don't stand out too much.
Exactly. And get ready for Aussie slang.
Oh, the slang. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll pick it up fast.
I'm sure I will.
You will.
What about in the workplace, particularly in a hospital setting?
You'll generally find a pretty flat hierarchy.
Okay.
And communication is quite informal.
Okay.
People tend to be pretty direct,
Direct? Okay.
but they often use humor and sarcasm to soften things.
So don't take everything literally.
Exactly. Punctuality is important, though.
Okay.
And there's a good emphasis on work-life balance.
So that's positive.
Yeah, and some core Aussie values you'll see are egalitarianism, that fair go.
Right. Everyone gets a fair chance.
Exactly. And then mateship, this sense of camaraderie.
Okay.
So be ready to make some mates.
I think I can handle that.
I think you can.
Okay, so let's talk jobs. What's the job market actually looking like for doctors right now?
Well, in a word, strong.
Strong. Okay.
Yeah, there's high demand across the board,
Across the board. Okay.
especially for GPs in rural areas.
Oh, right. So outside the cities.
Yeah, and vacancy numbers have been increasing.
So there are jobs out there.
Plenty. And while the broader economy has seen a bit of a slowdown,
Right.
the healthcare sector is still growing.
So it's somewhat protected?
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
And there are opportunities across various specialties.
So not just GPs.
No, not at all.
Okay. And what about salary expectations?
Well, junior doctors, you're probably looking at a starting range.
Okay.
Registrars earn more, of course.
Makes sense.
And experienced GPs, particularly those willing to go rural,
Right.
can have really significant earning potential.
So rural's the way to go if you want to earn big bucks.
It could be. And in terms of actually finding jobs,
Right.
state health board websites are a great starting point.
Okay.
And there are also medical recruitment agencies that can help.
So lots of resources out there.
There are.
Okay. So we've covered living working culture now. Let's talk about the dreaded taxes.
Oh, yeah. Everyone's favorite.
What do new residents need to know about the Australian tax system?
Well, first of all, it's a progressive system,
Progressive meaning?
meaning the more you earn, the higher the tax rate.
Okay.
And as a resident for tax purposes.
Which is usually if you're there for over 183 days.
Yeah, you'll need a tax file number or TFN.
Okay, TFN. Got it.
And you'll be taxed on your worldwide income.
Worldwide. Okay.
There are different tax brackets.
Right. Different rates.
And on top of that, most people pay that 2% Medicare levy.
So that's separate.
It is. And make sure you lodge your tax return by October 31st each year.
So mark that date in your calendars.
Absolutely.
Okay, taxes done. Let's touch briefly on the political landscape.
Right, the lay of the land.
What's our listener stepping into?
Well, Australia is a constitutional monarchy
Okay.
with a parliamentary democracy.
Right.
There's a federal system with state and territory governments.
So multiple levels.
Yeah, and the main political parties are the Labour Party,
Okay.
we're currently in government,
Right.
and then their Liberal National Coalition.
Yeah, opposition.
Yeah, and some of the big issues right now
Okay.
are things like cost of living, housing, healthcare funding, and skilled migration.
So all very relevant.
Absolutely.
Okay, and finally, what about government support and policies specifically for international medical graduates?
Right, the IMGs.
Yeah.
So there are various visa options designed for medical professionals.
Okay, different pathways.
Yeah, and the registration process is overseen by the Medical Board of Australia,
Okay.
and it has different pathways depending on your qualifications.
So you need to check that out.
Definitely.
Mm.
And you'll likely need to meet certain health requirements for your visa.
Right. Makes sense.
And on the support side, there are a bunch of settlement service providers.
Settlement services. Okay.
Yeah, they can help you get established,
Like what kind of help?
help with finding housing, opening bank accounts, practical stuff.
Okay. Useful.
Yeah. And there are also professional organizations like the AMA.
The Australian Medical Association?
Yeah, and the RACGP.
The Royal Australian College of General Practitioners.
That's the one they offer valuable resources and networking opportunities.
So it's good to get connected.
It is.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
We've done our best.
It's a big decision moving to Australia to practice medicine.
It is a big move.
But as we've heard, there are some fantastic opportunities.
Definitely.
You'll be joining a country with a strong healthcare system, a welcoming culture,
Hopefully.
and a great quality of life.
That's the goal.
So as you prepare for this adventure,
Yeah.
think about what specifically excites you about Australian medical practice or lifestyle.
What are you most looking forward to?
Yeah, and how are you going to actively engage with that to make this exciting next chapter a real success?
Yeah. Make the most of it.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
Cheers.
We'll catch you next time.
See you later.